So all I can figure is it has to get that's so tight. That's crazy. Yeah, not impressed. Not even a little bit. This is not as easy as they make it look on the video. We're very close right there to forcing it on, which I don't like. Hey there, welcome back to the channel. For those of you that are new to the channel, new subscribers, I'm Bob, and this is the Sato's YouTube channel. It's about our family and our cars, and what we do in our cars and have fun. So today's video is gonna be an install video, one out of necessity, because when I first upgraded the wheels and tires on the Jeep, I knew I was gonna have to air up and air down, and I didn't have time to order a air compressor to wire up on the Jeep, so I just went to Harbor Freight and picked up a cheap Pittsburgh air compressor, and I've done several trails and probably, I don't know, 30 air ups since then, and that air compressor would overheat on me and start kicking out, so finally I had it and it's done. So that Pittsburgh air compressor died on me, so I ordered a new ARB air compressor and the pump kit, and then I got the bracket from Way of Life for mounting underneath the fender. So today we're gonna install that on the Jeep. It goes underneath the fender right here, underneath the fender liner. So I'm gonna get started on that. So the first step on that install is we're gonna have to move the wheel and tire and then remove the fender and fender liner. So yeah, I'm gonna get this install started. Like I said, first step, we can get all this stuff out of the way. So first step is jack up your car. So we're gonna jack the Jeep up and get a jack stand supported under there and take the wheel and tire off, and then remove the fender. Alright, so now that we have the Jeep jacked up and supported with the jack stand, we're going to take the tire and wheel off and then work on removing the fender. Alright, so a quick look inside the fender liner here. So you can see this is where the fender liner ripped. So normally there would be, and I'll show you guys the passenger side so you can have something to reference to, but normally there would be a little bit more fender liner here where this ripped off. So the air compressor is going to be sitting right here. If I leave it like that, it's going to flip water and mud into it. So I need to get that repaired before we drive it in the rain or take it out in the mud. So that'll be the plan. Luckily the weather's good down here, so I shouldn't be in any bad weather for the trails tomorrow. Our next step here is to take the fender off. So to remove the fender, there's 4 bolts that hold it in, and then there's a bunch of clips inside this area that you just kind of have to pull it off. And then you have a wire connector right here for your signal lights and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. All right, just for reference, the bolts are 10mm bolts, and there's one here, one there, one there, and one there. So those are the bolts that need to come out. So I'm gonna take those out and then remove the fender. All right, so with the bolts removed, I'm just gonna tug on the fender and pull the clamps off, and that should give me access to that wire, and then I'm gonna disconnect the connector on that, and that should be it for the fender. Alright, so if that looked pretty bad, it's because it was. So when you pull these off, you're going to break a few of them. I'm not even sure if that's the right way to get this off. That's what I saw when I did the research for this. Wasn't pull it off, but if you look at these clips, so I broke 4 of them, and they kind of have these pinches in the back right here, which you can't get to when the fenders and the fender liner's on there. So 4 of those are broken, which I knew I was going to break some, but luckily I have enough left to space them out around the fender for now until I can get some replacements from the dealership. But I think when you pull on that fender, you got to pull it out a little bit and then push it up, and it might release from those clips a little bit easier. That's just my theory by looking at it right now. Since I already pulled it off, I can't really tell, but I'll make sure I check on that and make sure I get it right. Fender liner, fender's off, so you can see in here now. Alright, so up in here, this is where we're gonna mount the air compressor, up in this area right here. And we're gonna have to move this bracket and swing it down, which is just a 10mm bolt on the side, and loosen that one up. And then we gotta get our compressor ready on the bracket and get everything ready to install. So I'm gonna move this bracket and then get on the rest of it. Alright, so once you get this bracket turned facing down like this, then you're just going to tighten up that screw right there and call it good. So that's secure. And then we're going to get our air compressor ready and put it on the bracket so it can be installed. Alright, so you're gonna need to get the ARB air compressor, high output. I just got the single pump, and then the air compressor pump kit, and then I ordered this bracket from the Way of Life website. It's the same one he uses in his video. I'm gonna get this stuff out and get it ready to go. Alright, so as far as the compressor goes, this is the compressor. It has the bracket on it here. It's the single high output compressor, and it comes with all the relays and regulators and everything that you need for wiring and all that stuff, and then it comes with the wiring harness too. So but first things first, I'm going to get it mounted on the bracket that I got from Way of Life. So in order to do that, we're going to have to loosen up these 2 bolts right here and right here, and swing this bracket out right here so we can mount it onto this bracket. So I'm going to do that real quick. Now we'll open up the bracket and you can see which is right here. Alright, so after you loosen the bolts and swing the bracket out right here, then you're just going to use 4 bolts and 4 of the nuts that came with it here in the hardware package to mount the air compressor to the bracket. So you're just going to basically lay the bracket down like this so that this part is angled up, and then you're just going to set the bracket on here, put the 4 bolts in the holes. So I'm going to do that. I don't think I'm going to be able to hold the camera and do that, so I'm just going to real quick do that off camera. So once you have it bolted to the bracket, and I just used a 10mm end wrench to hold the nut, and I screwed the bolt in with a 10mm socket. Okay, so the kit comes with spacers that go behind the bracket on the Jeep. So you got, if you look, you got two different sizes. So you got a smaller one and two big, or one big one and two small ones. One's a little bit thicker. So the thicker one goes, on this right here. And did it really just drop that? Okay, I see it. And then the smaller ones go on these, which I think that's gonna have to move over a little bit, because I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be flat in there. So right here, I have a little bit of interference, so I'm gonna have to adjust this a little bit. And the other spacer is gonna go over here so that they sit flush. So it's these 3 bolts right here. Okay, so I have the spacers installed. I just kind of had to adjust this over to get the spacer to sit in this bolt evenly in the mounting spot there. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put the bracket on here. So you're gonna wanna have some space there. So your pump goes on like this. And mounts up on those 3. On this bottom, you can see there's a bolt down here on the bottom and this wire's in the way, which is kind of awkward. I apologize, but doing the best I can here. And then it's supposed to go up to that right there. So this is a little tougher than it looks. It's going to take me a second to get it on there, but that's how it goes. So I'll let you know how I get it on there. All right, so before we commit here to putting the compressor in, we're going to loosen up these screws right here on the side, just to let the compressor clock, so we have some adjustment in up and down, so you can see it slides down. So that way we have some leeway, I guess. And I'm having a hard time getting this to fit, so I'm not super impressed with this bracket. I can't get it to fit on the top 3 and the bottom one, so I'm gonna have to use a little bit of force to do that, I think. So the idea is to hang it off of these 3 bolts right here, and then this one down here, if you can see that right there. And this wire gets in the way, so you have to hold that out of the way and then try to hook it on this bottom bolt right here. So I don't know if making the compressor slide makes that easier, but it doesn't seem like it would. So unless it gives me more room with the wires, we'll see. It might have been the wires that were in the way. So I've got it hooked on the top, and it does not want to go. So I'm gonna try to push it a little bit. I feel like I'm gonna have to beat it on there or something, which seems wrong, because it didn't seem like they were struggling that hard to get it on in the video. But sure feels like I had a struggle to put it on there. Huh. Yeah, that's not cool. It's not even close. I'm like a 1/4 inch away. If you can see right here, you can't see, but I'm about a 1/4 inch away from getting it to hook right there. And I can't hook it on the bottom first. If I do that, then I'm way off on the top. So that's not working either. So not super excited about the quality of this bracket here. I'm not gonna lie. I think I gotta put these bolts in too that let the compressor swing too. So I'm gonna do that, and then I might try to bend this bracket a little bit, or see if I can squish down some of this heat shielding a little better and see if that's gonna help it seat in there. If there's anything I can move out of the way, I don't know. Just kind of work it in there, do the best I can. Let's see. I'm trying to just hang it off the top very lightly and see if I can get it to come down around that. But it doesn't seem to want to. I'm gonna try pushing this up and tightening it down so I can get a little more leverage. Alright, so we pull the plug, and this is the filter. It just goes on the top right here. Don't forget to put that on. That'll be handy. Alright. Now, we're gonna have to maybe get Western with this. We're very close right there to forcing it on, which I don't like. Alright, so the solution to that was this. So I had to use a hammer. I just kind of smacked it down till it fit in there. Now it's hooked underneath there on this lower bracket right there, if you can see that. That ran out of batteries on my flashlight, so that's about the best shot I can give you. But all the bolts are there, so I'm just gonna put these 4 nuts on there and tighten them down, and then the air compressor should be mounted. Alright, so this nut up here is a pretty big pain to get on, and if you don't have one of these ratcheting wrenches, you're gonna have a really hard time. That's gonna be like a little quarter turn at a time. So this ratcheting wrench comes in handy. Because you can get it on there and ratchet it. Otherwise it's like a little quarter turn at a time. Let's see how this goes. I'm trying to be as real as I can with how smooth this doesn't go. So just so you guys have a realistic expectation as far as how it's going to be. So yeah, getting a wrench in there is not easy. And I don't think a socket's going to fit in there either. So it's just all these little quarter turns at a time. So alright, so I was able to get those nuts and bolts tightened like one little turn at a time, with turning the wrench over a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And they're all tight, and I was able to get it on there, but that was definitely not easy. And I don't know if my Jeep's got a variation in the spacing on these bolts, or if there's, you know, some kind of quality control issue with the bracket. But hopefully that came across. But it's not really easy. So next thing we're gonna do, so there's a 10mm bolt at the bottom of this cylinder right here. Underneath there's a 10mm bolt right there that you loosen, and that lets you clock this separately so you can get your port here facing straight forward. So that's kind of how you want it, and you still have to tighten up your compressor. So you can get it pretty high. You want it to be off the frame, I imagine, and probably off the master cylinder right there. So I'm gonna shoot for just a little bit down, leave a little bit of clearance up there, and then I'm gonna tighten these two right here, bolts to tighten that down and make it solid. Next step after that is to put the air fitting in right here. I ordered a hose kit for remote chuck, so I can run it to the front bumper, but that's not here yet. So since I need this tomorrow, I'm just gonna put the chuck in right here. So I'll show you how that works after I get these tightened and this whole thing secured. Alright, so everything's tight under the Jeep, and now we're gonna get to our air compressor pump kit, which comes with our hose and our chuck, and it should have in that row. So here's our chuck. Yeah, so there's our air chuck. So we're just gonna have to put a little bit of Teflon tape on this air chuck and screw it into that fitting right there. And that's pretty much it for this step. Oh no, it's not. Okay, so I'm gonna have this guy right here. This is for our air regulator. So it actually goes into that, and then the chuck goes on the end of this. So I'll show you. So it kind of goes together like that. So, and this piece here goes to your regulator, which came with the compressor, and this bag right here. So I'll get that. So for the sake of being able to hold the camera here, I'm just going to show you. This is the regulator, or the regulator. So that goes in that top hole. So under 90 right there. Let's set this down. Alright, so your 90 right here. This goes in this top hole right here. So the whole thing goes together like that. But you got to Teflon tape everything so it doesn't leak. So I'm going to run the Teflon on everything, get these two installed on here, get some Teflon on there, and then I'll show you where I put it on the compressor. Alright, so as far as on the compressor, this goes in right here. You're going to want to turn that so it's facing up. And then your regulator, so this hole is facing up, and then your regulator is going to go in the top right here, like that, and your air chuck is going to go in the end right here. So hopefully that makes sense for you guys. That's basically your setup right there. And this is where you're gonna, for now, you can hook a hose to this, get a hose kit, and you can run a hose around everything and mount it up here on your front bumper, which will make it nice and easy to get to because this is gonna be behind the tire for now. But since I need this tomorrow, because this is a last minute install, this is how it's gonna look today. So, plus I gotta get in here to pull this fender liner out again anyways. So I'm gonna get all that finished up and then we're gonna work on the wiring. Alright, so here's the final product. The air compressor's installed. It's all clocked, so I got everything facing pretty much forward. There's your chuck right there. Your pressure regulator's right there. Everything's tight and secure. It's all tight and snug. I mean, after all, it was a tight enough fit. Everything's pretty solid. So, two things I'm thinking. I may do a filter relocation up higher to the fender, and I'm definitely going to put a hose extension out to the front bumper so I don't have to get into the fender liner. But with the way my fender liner is right now, I don't have a fender liner right here, so it's easy to get in there. I'll just turn the tire and it's easy to get in there to plug it in. So next step is install the wiring harness, which I need to open the hood and all that for. Alright, so this is one of my not so favorite parts of installing, is the wiring part, but it comes with this wiring loom, or this goes to your relay, sorry. These two go to your regulator, your pressure regulator that we put on right there, and this one with the red and black, let's see, you can see, so you got, these are for air lockers, if you're gonna add air lockers eventually, but the big wires with the red and the black, those are for the power to the compressor. So all this end goes down to the compressor and the regulator. You got an inline fuse right here, and then working our way up the harness, we have, the power cables and the ground, and the power that goes to the switch. So we're gonna use the switches inside. If you didn't have a switch inside your Jeep, then you're gonna use this for a switch panel. So you're gonna have this whole other wiring harness, which I'm not gonna cover because honestly I don't know how to do it. But if I had to, I would look it up. Basically, I'm just gonna run this down to the compressor through right here, and then I'm gonna run all the wires across the hood right here. Like this, runs down alongside your master cylinder, down by your compressor, and everything else is gonna run across over to the battery and to your switches on your that are pre-wired for the Jeep. So basically I'm just running this side with these wires across. That's for the battery. This is for the switch, for your switches over there. So that's kind of all laid out right there. That's gonna work. I'll just get it all kind of tidied up right there. So what we're gonna do is, since we have our wiring harness down here, these are our powers, the black and the red. That's gonna go into the compressor power, which is right here, which I disconnected. So that goes together. And then your blue and red go onto your pressure regulator right here, and it doesn't matter which one goes on which side. So they just need to be connected and solid. So those are connected. These are for your air lockers, so those are just going to get tied up with the harness when we clean everything up, and it'll get all taped up and out of the way. So the only thing else you have to deal with down here is your relay, which is right here, which is going to come up here by the firewall. So we're going to put that up here. Pardon the grunting. And it's going to sit right here in this corner right here, and that's going to hook up to our relay, which is right here, and this connects in to that. Let me plug it in here. So this plugs into that right there. Only goes in one way. Sorry, it's hard to hold the camera. So that goes in right there, and then you can just kind of zip tie it out of the way. That puts your zip ties right there. Your fuse goes right here, and then your wires start headed over to the other side. Let me get all that situated and I'll show you how that looks. Alright, so I ran the wiring across the cowl here, and I couldn't get it to tuck behind up here because these power cables or ground cables aren't long enough to reach. So what I did was I just ran it across right there, and I'm just going to zip tie it down for now so that it's nice and clean up there and doesn't flop around after I get these all wired in. So we're going to have to put on some connectors down here. So this is your power and your ground, and this is your switch harness. So if you're hooking up a switch in the cab, you would run this through the firewall into the cab, and depending on how many things you're wiring up, so if you, how many switches you had, you would have more things. But since we're just running power to the air compressor, that is this right here. So all we're worried is about power right here. So the way we know how to pin this right is by using our switch harness, which after you ran this in, you would be hooking in the switch harness, and that's what you would hook into your switches in the dash. But all we need this for is to reference where these colors of wires are. So you have red, let's see if you can see that on the camera. So you have red, yellow, green, and black. And so you want to kind of line up the connector and then connect the red to the corresponding where the red would be. After you do that, you're done. You're done with this. You don't need it anymore. If you have factory switches, you can just get rid of that. So what this hooks to is you're right here by your battery. If you pull this harness out that's right here and you peel the tape back, you're going to see these are your 4 switches. So this is your leads for your 4 switches that are inside your Jeep. You've got red, a solid red, a blue and purple, a green and red, or green and pink, and a tan and red pink. Tan and pink or something like that. So you can look in your owner's manual, but switch number 1 is this tan and pink one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this one off, strip it down, and I'm going to put a butt connector on it, or a post connector, or whatever you want to call it. This guy over here. So I'm going to put this guy on there, and I'm going to use that on that wire to hook to this post in here. So we've got a post in there. You can see it. Yeah, so there's a metal post in there, and I'm just going to hook this to there. And then I'm going to electrical tape everything and tie it all up nice. So that's the next steps. So hopefully that's not too confusing. I'm gonna get all this wired up and then I'll show you the final product. All right, so here's the finished product. We got pretty much all cleaned up. So I zip tied all the wires, got everything all cleaned up. So there's our air compressor, all our wiring comes up here. It's all zip tied up. We got our relay and our fuse here. All these wires are on the cowl there, all zip tied up. And then I ran the power lead to the power terminal, to the positive terminal, and the negative to the negative battery terminal. And our switch runs to the switch. And I tucked the excess back here and zip tied it together. I'm gonna tape that up a little better when I get a chance. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with the install. Now we get to see if I actually did what I was supposed to do to make it work. So, and then I get to put everything back together. So let's test it out. Should be auxiliary switch 1. So switch her over to run. And there's our air compressor working. So congratulations, we did something right. Pressure switch works too, so that's good. So I get air tomorrow. Now I get to put the fender back on and bolt it back up and then put the wheel back on. And sometime in the next little bit, I have to get a new fender liner and get that figured out. So that was the ARB compressor install, but this is just kind of my real world experience. A couple of the problems I had was that bracket didn't want to fit on very well. I had to kind of smack it on with a hammer, and getting those nuts on the back, I figured out finally I was supposed to take those. I wasn't supposed to put those nuts in the bracket and keep the compressor so it could swivel. Would have been easier. So I put those in a little too early. So I ended up doing little quarter turns on that wrench, which I don't think was necessary if I would have just left the screws out of it. So all in all, I'll test it out tomorrow on the trail and see how it works. You can kind of see the chuck ended up down here right behind the tire, so you can kind of see it down there. If you have any questions about the install, feel free to leave some comments. I'll answer them the best I can. I realize that wasn't the smoothest install that you've ever seen, but that's kind of how it goes in my garage. So these are a little easier to work on than the German cars I have, so at least I can get my hands in there and turn things. So all right, so the install is all complete. All we got to do now is test it out, and to help me out with that, I got old Jordan come back. we were gonna do a trail today. This is actually a few days later, and we were gonna do a trail today. We came by at the same time, and we're actually in St. George at the same time, haunting trucks by coincidence. And I rolled in at 9 a.m. this morning, but by the time we got everything together, it was too late to go out on a trail. We'd be out past dark if we tried to go on a trail. So we just had some lunch, and I'm gonna show them the Jeep's new trick. So let's show them that. All right, so I'll just keep it under here now. The way it works, I haven't put the extension hose on it yet, but it's just right here. So basically just run it down here. It's on the firewall, so just like we showed it in the video, and then it's just got this quick connect adapter on the end of it. Plug it in and hit the switch. So it's wired up to auxiliary 1. So I'll just hit auxiliary 1 switch here, if you can see that. Right there. And now we can air up on the trail. Nice and easy. So, and I don't know if I'm gonna mess around with buying anything special for hose wise, but that's it. It's that simple. Just plug it in and then just drag it around to each tire. So what I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna get that hose extension kit. I'm just gonna extend it out to the bumper out here and then mount it right here on the bumper, so it's easier to get to. So that's just like they have it on Way of Life. So so yeah, but a little bit of a reunion here with the Jordan. So we wanted to do a reunion tour and do a trail, but it didn't work out that way. So anyways, if you're liking this type of video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you out there on the trails.